Hey, welcome Unsecurity Podcast listeners. Welcome to episode 161. The date is Friday, January 14th. You'll be hearing this a few more days past that. I want to welcome you and welcome my co-host, Brad Nye. Brad?
Good morning, Evan.
Good morning. Man, it's been a long week. I'm tired as hell. I'm
Mm,
at the end this week for sure.
I'm
How you
I'm
doing?
definitely looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, there's been, this has been a great week. I love weeks. I love working, first of all, and I think many of us in information security do love working. Uh, I don't like working when I didn't accomplish anything.
Mm,
Uh, this week, a lot of things were accomplished. We launched the CVCISO certification, the first course for that. I'm excited to put the finishing touches on it. It's a lot of work because you have to create content. It's a 15
mm,
session course with so 30 hours of instruction that need to be created for that.
it's a lot.
Whatever, it's a lot of work. And then we'll roll. I will roll right from that into the upcoming CISSP mentor program,
Yep.
which is launching this week, next week, the
April
actual
8th.
announcement.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
No,
think they say something. Yeah, I think next week. I was
okay,
like, wait, what? I haven't created anything.
no, but I get a lot of people asking, when registration is going to open for that. It looks like registration will open next week. So if you do follow FRSecure, on social media or whatever, be on
Yeah.
the lookout for that. This will
Funny
be a
story.
fun class this year.
I think so. Funny story. So one of the VCSOs that just started, really in December, uh, he took and passed his uh, CISSP no, this morning. I'm sorry. I had a call with him yesterday. One of the first things he said was, "Are you going to talk security models with us, or please don't talk security models with us?" Because he'd been watching the videos.
Oh my God, right? Well, and so
But
the CISP mentor program, you said probably April 8th, I think is the date we decided is it's going
mhm,
to start. We're updating and revamping the entire course. It's and for people who don't know the history of the CISP mentor program, it started in 2010 with 6 students. Last year, I think we had 6,000 registrations, completely
we
free,
did it. We had
no
like
strings attached.
right, yeah, we had like 800 or 900 that I think that wasn't it that made it all the way through. It
Yeah,
was a high number.
it was a high number, and this year we're going to use. So we're changing the course book. The course book we used is still very very relevant. The one that we used, but it was older.
Yeah,
So we're updating the course content. Um, yeah, it should be a really good experience for our students.
yeah. The nice thing is with that older book, the content of the actual like CISSP program that hasn't changed in God knows how long, right? It
Much of it
so
hasn't changed since I passed my CISP in
right,
2005.
right. I mean, I used the book that we used to pass mine, and it was 3 years old at that point. It doesn't change. It's just reorganized, reworded. So, if this book that we're going to use doesn't resonate with you, don't hesitate to go back to the other one. I think the other
Right.
one is definitely an easier read, but this one has newer content, different content, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the takeaway for that, for people who have been in this industry or maybe you're just starting out, uh, the basics, the fundamentals of information security have not changed.
Nope.
And that's what the CISP mentor program, and that's what CISP in general, that certification is the fundamentals, right? Because some people will rip on the CISP as like, well, you got your CISP, big deal. Here's the big deal. 90-ish, 95, there's no real quantification, but most of your risk comes from the failure to implement fundamentals. So
Fully.
I'm I'm 30 years in this industry and I'm still preaching fundamentals like I was 20 something years ago.
Yep. Yeah. And people still aren't able to do it, or they're still not doing it.
Absolutely, man, everywhere. So, until you get the fundamentals squared away, nobody should be impressed with your millions of dollars you spent on endpoint and God knows what else. Yeah, that stuff helps, but without the fundamentals,
Yeah.
you're still kind of screwed.
Yep.
So that's good. The and then on the CVC, we're going to limit, because we've been getting really good feedback. One of my fears when you launch a new certification or a new training program is that nobody's going to sign up. You know what I mean? You launch it and you're like, oh, great. I guess I'm teaching it to myself. We've had good reception. We're going to limit this class. So if you're thinking about enrolling, we may have to put you into the next class. We will continue to do these. These will be perpetual. So there's that. The big part of it, so the second sort of chapter in that course is information security fundamentals, because if you're going to be a vCISO, you better know what the IS is in vCISO, right? Information security. That is the longest portion of the class, and a lot of that actually is crossover from the CISSP.
I should just take the final and see how I do without seeing any of the coursework. See if I can pass.
Well, then I'm going to put. If you're going to do that, then I'll put some stuff in the final that'll be like, yeah, some weird thing that I just pointed out that nobody would have known unless I. Now we'll make this legit. The reason why we're doing this program is there's most maybe vCISOs out there who are not doing vCISO correctly. They're not serving the best interests of their customers, of their clients. They're serving their best interests.
Even our vCISO program, which I think we do a really good job, right? The pandemic threw everything. We were getting ready to roll out the next revision. Everything got put on hold. We have to completely reassess what we were doing. And now that we've got a couple of years of how this works, we're in the process of completely updating that program to meet where they're at now, given this new, normal.
Well, that's it. And that's a great segue. So one of the things for this episode, a couple things. We've got questions, right? So from our listeners, we've got questions that they've sent us, and we're going to address those questions. And really, to frame it all, we're going to talk about, we are well into this pandemic now, right? Things have changed. Some things are not going to go back to the way they were. So what does this mean for information security or cybersecurity? So we're heading into another year right now, 2022, where employers are keeping staff home.
Indefinitely.
We've been through this weird cycle where they've brought them back and then now sending back home again. And so it's a crazy world, man. So what does this mean for information security? So our first question in that framing is, how has the landscape of on-premise security changed?
Yeah. I mean, to some degree, you almost feel like maybe physical security controls are maybe even a little bit more important right now because there's nobody there to watch, right? So making sure you've got the cameras and the alarms and those things in place because the business is empty. If you've got on-prem, that would be potentially, a target.
Yeah. I think, the obvious answer is it's made our jobs more difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Logically, complexity is the worst enemy of security, right? That's a piece of wisdom you can take with you to the grave. When I have a smaller, more condensed network, I have a network, maybe a handful of networks that I need to concern myself with securing. When you blow things out to, this work from home model, now I have thousands of networks that I need to be concerned about securing.
Point. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, so I had more control over it, right? another thing about security is I can't secure the things I can't control. So if I'm putting things on somebody's home network, I can't control that network. Well, maybe,
Right.
unless I'm going to deploy a corporate owned home network,
Right.
you know.
Well, that's one of the things that we're seeing people struggle with is a lot of their management tools were built under the guise or the expectation that they would be on the same network. Now that they're not, they're remote, they no longer have the ability to push patches, to do updates, and how do you fix that when you're under contract and trying to figure all this out?
Right. Well, I think it puts even more of an emphasis on the thing we've been preaching for, again, 20 some odd years about those fundamentals, right?
Yep.
So now that you've changed from this model to a new model, we had rules for the game on this model, hopefully, right? We had policies, we had some governance,
Yep.
whatever we had for this more condensed model. Now we blew it up. And if I didn't, that means my governance has to change. Don't assume that people understand what's expected of them with information security at home, with their home network, with their home office, with whatever. We have to design that. We have to give some guidance for that. And
Yeah.
we have to reach out to our employees and ask them, what do you do at home? How do you operate? How do you work? So that I don't get in the way of that, so I can put adequate protections around it.
Yeah, and to help people with that, we do have on the website a work from home checklist that kind of you can use to give to your employees and say, hey, are you doing these things? Here's some basic things. Because, yeah, you can't control their home network. So let's give them the tools to make sure we reduce that risk as much as possible.
Right.
'Cause
Well, in some
you-
cases, if depending on the business that if depending on where I'm working, if the culture permits me and we've got budget or we've got whatever, from a security perspective, I would prefer to buy your home network for you, deploy your home network for you so that I can control it. Because ideally, I would have control of your home network and I would segment off your kids, your entertainment stuff, whatever, right? And we can do that now with home networks. It's easy as pie to create
Yeah.
those guest networks and segment.
Yeah, but that's where you run into that sticky privacy issue. So it's kind of which
it's
way do you go, right? That's that risk decision. That's what's the balance?
right. But I don't even think you have a privacy issue if you configured it correctly and deployed it correctly, right? So this thing that I'm sending home with you, because it's the same as if I sent you home with a laptop. Now I'm giving you other equipment as well. I'm going to pay for it. Your
Yeah.
privacy stuff, your stuff you want to do for private stuff, you're not supposed to be doing that stuff on your laptop anyway. You're not supposed to be using
Sure.
personal email. But I mean, as long as you define what those rules are and they
Oh, I
agree
see.
to those rules,
You're saying like if I already had a home network, you're going to run a second line in just for work or
potentially, yeah.
what? Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, I'm
Or completely segment it off. We're going to
Yeah.
do a site-to-site VPN maybe from, your
Yeah.
router,
Okay, that makes sense.
something like that. But I think the interesting thing is these discussions have to be had if they haven't already. Like, how are we going to actually secure and control our information assets in other places?
Right. Well, and one of the things right now that you can do without any major fundamental changes in operation is your VPN connection coming into its own segmented network with additional controls in place. If not, start looking at that. Do you have MFA on everything? If not, you better get it on. But if you're using VPN because you're on-prem, segment it off. Do an extra level of filtering and scanning because you don't know what's coming in before they can get to that internal data.
Yeah, and And back to the, the fundamental stuff, you have to define these rules. You have to define what are we actually going to do? What is the rule? What are the rules for this new game we're playing? You have to communicate those rules because you've got a bunch of players playing the game with you. And then the next fundamental is, asset management. You have to know what's out there, right? What things can communicate with my things and where's my data going? It was easy when I had a central, if you go back to the mainframe days, right? That was a lot easier, right? I knew where my data was. It's right there. And the only thing you can see is a terminal to it. We blew things up. Things got more complicated, but the same premise applies. I can't secure things I don't know I have. So if things are connecting from all over the place, I can't secure that. I'm sorry. I need asset inventories.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and again, managing those assets. Do you have a tool to manage those assets off-prem? If not, you better start figuring something out because have they been patched? Have the virus signatures been updated? Yeah.
Yeah, things definitely changed a lot. Now, let's say that we've sent people home but we still have the office, right? So we still have to secure the office as well. So what about the importance? The next question is it as important as before to secure the on-prem things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of led up my thoughts on it is I think it might be more important because you probably don't have people there. Mm-hmm. That's a big deterrent is, people. There's nobody there watching.
Well, you and I have been, if you give any attacker physical access long enough, they're going to compromise the technical pieces, right? So being that let's say that people aren't actually in the office, it makes it a lot easier for me if I was an attacker to put something into that environment.
Oh yeah, there's no pressure. You're not rushed. It's not like I've got this 20-minute window to do this or whatever. It's nobody's here. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. So I think, and it's not like that. That would be the, when you think about the most significant sort of things happening in our industry today, ransomware is top of mind for everybody. Yeah. Now, your physical prem stuff, ransomware is not going to, you don't have somebody from Russia who's going to fly out to Minnetonka, Minnesota, and compromise our physical.
Yeah,
it's an
probably
opportunist.
More smash and grab, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And now you've lost everything.
Right. So putting that all into context, I think it is just as important, if not more. It's understanding that the risks that were there before have changed. And I need to account for those. So how am I going to account for people not physically being there? Maybe I put, beef up my camera surveillance.
Right.
Maybe I invest in a security guard to make rounds on a regular basis. Something.
Right. And again, does it mean that that's your biggest risk? No.
Right.
But it has changed, and you have to adapt to that.
Yep. Yeah, and if you remember, when the pandemic first started. So this was March of 2020 when we closed our office. I was in the office every day for at least 6 months. And there were 2 reasons for that. 3 reasons. One was I get more work done in the office. I didn't have a home office that I wanted to work at, so there was a functional reason there. But other reasons were I was there to get the mail.
Yeah.
So every day I went and got the mail. I would call our CFO and say, these are the checks we got today, so she would know, does she need to come in or does she need to send somebody in to do deposits? And, you got to keep the business running. And then the other reason is every day I would do rounds.
Yeah.
I would check the doors. I would, look for, and it wasn't just physical break-in stuff either. When there's nobody there, I have to be concerned about, is there a water leak? Did a window get broken? There's some kind of natural thing that might have happened. So it's easy to take care of. You just send somebody there once a day.
Yeah. And for them, that risk is pretty minimal because they're there alone.
Hmm. Right.
But yeah, getting the mail, those types of things. There's a big stack of mail outside your office. That's a pretty good indicator nobody's been there for a while.
Right. And I still got to make payroll too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then it was funny because then when people started coming back into the office, then I left. And now they all give me crap because I'm not going back into the office really much anymore.
Yeah. Somebody was asking if I was going to be going back in or not, and I showed them the picture from my office. You've seen it. I was like, they're like, yeah, okay, cube
Right.
wall or that. Okay, I get it.
Well, and I don't know if I showed you, man, but I got my Mexican visa yesterday.
Nice. No.
Yeah, I'll show it to you here if I can find it. Son of a gun. Here it is. See that?
Cool.
Yeah. So when I moved to Mexico, it's the same thing, man. I mean, there's no way in hell I'm coming back. You guys, if you guys want to see me in person, you come down and see me.
I mean, I can't blame you.
Right? All right. So how has the landscape changed? We covered that question. We covered, is it the same or is it, I don't, the question specifically is it as important as before? The answer to that question is yes.
Yeah.
Right? We agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just ignore it, right? When you talk about risks, yes, it may not be your most significant risk right now, and you may not be able to get to it for a while, but is it on the list? Because you can't not be on the list somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Don't like set it, forget it.
No,
Out of sight,
right?
out of mind. That's not going to work.
Exactly. And even from a legal protection standpoint, if just having it on the list gives me protection because it shows that I considered the risk. It's not high enough priority for me right now. Now that's a judgment call, but it's still reasonable, right? When you talk about legal liability, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take this as legal advice, but I've worked with them enough times. You need to be reasonable. What would a reasonable person do in the same situation? That's called the prudent man rule. Really important.
Right. Yep. 100%.
All right. So the next question is: are companies more vulnerable when running with limited, no staff on site?
Yes.
Yep, I agree. Yes.
And
All right,
not
next
just
question.
the physical, right? If you have an outage, it's now going to take. Where does your tech live? Where does your IT, sysadmin live? It's going to take them an hour to get in. That's been to troubleshoot. So those are
Well,
other
right.
things to keep.
And one of the things that's always been a big benefit for us as security people is putting yourself in the mind of an attacker, right? So my motivation, if I'm an attacker, so you think like ransomware, that's one of the biggest kind of things going on for a while now. I'm doing this because I want to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I want the easiest way to make the most amount of money possible without having to spend a lot of money. And so the way to do those things is to look for opportunities when I'll get the greatest return on the investment. It's no magic, or it's no what's the word I'm looking for? It's no surprise that the reason we see, for why we see upticks in ransomware attacks or all attack traffic during holidays and times when people are out of the office. Because you're probably less likely to be watching the damn systems.
Right.
So the same thing applies with physical security. When I don't have people on staff, there's nobody watching physically.
With you.
You have to count for that. All right. Next question: are the challenges of transitioning to a secure remote workforce detracting from security professionals' ability to maintain an on-prem security?
Again, yes.
Yep, I agree. And the reason why is because now you've given me I'm confronted as a security professional with a whole bunch of risks that have now changed. And I've got to recalculate, I've got to recalibrate, I've got to figure this out. And you mentioned it, at the beginning of the podcast, some of the things that Security Studio has been working on. It takes time to work through these things, right? When you're doing assessments for your clients, it's changed. It's not the same assessment. It takes a while to settle. All right. Anything else to add to this from you?
Yeah, like we said, is it the most important risk? Probably not. Is it your highest risk? Probably not. Is it a risk that is now changed? Absolutely. So, don't forget about it. Just take those things into consideration.
Yeah, that's good advice, man. And that's the game, right? I think a lot of us, maybe in this industry, it's easy for us to lose track of what the game actually is. The game is risk management. That's what information
Yep.
security is. So if I'm going to manage risk, then I have to keep my head, what are the risks? What's changed? And
Right.
how am I accounting for that?
100%.
Good stuff, man. All right. So one news article, and then we'll close this episode. Maybe we'll do some shout outs.
Yeah.
So the one news article I have is actually it's sort of a news article. It's a Reddit article, and it's for those interested in ATMs. That's the post. It was posted 4 days ago. Posted by u/realgoneman. Okay. Upvoted 95% of the time, 17 comments. It says, for those interested in ATMs, ... there's an electrical company liquidating a few via auction in Pennsylvania. Various states of disrepair. The best ones, $42 as of this post. Check Rasmus Auctions. Interesting. What would I do with an ATM machine that I bought that's being liquidated?
Oh, well, I mean, if you're going to learn about it. How does it work? What vulnerabilities are there? It's going to give you the ability, if you want to do card skimmer, you can now test it without fear of being caught. You can really maybe get sophisticated with it and hide it, right? And so, and we've seen an uptick on those card skimmers. So,
Right.
that would be my big concern.
No, I agree completely, man. And when you post something like this on Reddit, it's there are hackers there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, if I was interested, I've got so much other work to do. But if I were interested, yeah, I would do that exact thing. I would buy some of these potentially, and do testing.
Yeah.
And then I would either, if I was a bad guy, I would do testing. And I probably wouldn't carry out attacks myself on ATM machines. I would sell the equipment to others to carry out those attacks.
Makes
There's
it a
more
lot.
money in that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot less risk.
Yeah. So be careful. And, one of the big things about personal protection, physical protection, safety, cybersecurity is situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention. A lot of us are walking around with our phones like this, got a million things on our mind while you're doing whatever it is you're doing. Try as best you can to focus on the task at hand. If you're taking money out of an ATM machine, focus on taking money out of the ATM machine.
Yep.
If something looks off, it probably is off. You know what I mean? I go to Mexico regularly. I'll be leaving again on Sunday. And there's ATM machines everywhere. Right? I don't just use any ATM machine, right?
Right.
I use an ATM machine that's in an enclosed space, right? So there are ATM machines that are inside banks there. I use those ATM machines. I use ATM machines that are well lit. I use ATM machines that, we inspect the ATM machine. Usually my wife has me actually go first. She says, is this a good one to use? And I'll look at it. It seems crazy, but it's situational awareness. Do it.
The other thing I look for is their camera coverage.
Right. Well, and a lot of times you'll see, because I've also, I've encountered more than one. I'd say maybe 4 that I can think of. 4 times where I've seen a compromised ATM machine in person. And if you do find one, report it. Go to,
Absolutely.
If it's inside of a convenience store, if it's inside, report it to the merchant. Don't just I'm not using this, and then walk away and leave somebody else to be a victim.
Yeah, not cool.
But yeah, seriously, pay attention. You're not this fear of missing out when you're walking around. That's my biggest peeve right now, because You see people like in Mexico, for instance, or downtown somewhere, and they're walking around with their head like this. You're making yourself a target. If I was a bad person and I was looking for somebody to rob, you're my target.
Right. Yeah. I do everything I can not to do that. Like driving, I put my phone in the little center armrest.
It takes
Get rid
discipline,
of that.
but it's a good habit, man.
Yep. It's totally worth it. So,
All right, so that's episode 161. Brad, you got any shout outs today?
I do. Lewis Hyatt passed his QSA this week, so he's our newest QSA. So shout out to him.
Congratulations, Lewis. That's awesome. I'm going to give a shout out to, who am I going to give a shout out? You know what? I was in the office yesterday and met our newest employee, or one of our newest employees. But I also got to spend some time with Megan.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give a shout out to Megan. She is awesome. You know,
Yep.
that's it. That's the best word for it. I love her demeanor, her,
Uh-huh.
she's good.
And so I get to take credit for that hire because we met up or I posted something on an IT forum and about the mentor program, and that's how she heard of us. So I'll take full credit.
Yeah, you deserve it, man. I mean, she's amazing.
She's awesome. I fully agree.
Let's do whatever we can to keep her happy. All right, so that's episode 161. We'll talk to you next week.